What if I told you there are places the world tried to forget, places where time stopped, but the stories never did? Some were lost in silence, others buried in sand or snow. But each one holds a secret, a warning, or a memory too powerful to disappear. Stay with this video, and you'll see what most people never will. From cliffs to coastlines, we now drift to Xingshan Island, just east of Shanghai, where the sea once fed a village called Hutuan, and nature would later reclaim it with quiet elegance. In the 1950s, Hutuan was a thriving fishing village. Over 3,000 people called it home. Houses clung to steep green hills, a school taught the next generation, and a working harbor kept the rhythm of life tied to the tides. It was remote, but alive. Still, the isolation took its toll. Supply routes were difficult. Schools and hospitals were far. As the fishing industry grew more competitive, the village slowly began to shrink. Families left, chasing better opportunities inland. The sound of footsteps faded. By 2002, the last residents had gone. The harbor stilled. The classrooms fell silent. But that wasn't the end of Hutuan's story. Nature didn't just return, it transformed the village into something breathtaking. Vines curled through windows. Greenery spilled over rooftops. Every wall became a canvas for moss and leaves. What was once a fading fishing hub became a living jungle of abandoned beauty. In 2015, images of this emerald ghost town went viral. The world took notice. By 2017, a viewing platform was built, drawing curious travelers to witness the strange harmony between man and nature. Today, as many as 90,000 tourists visit every year. Some of the village's former residents have even returned, as guides, as storytellers, as witnesses to what was. Hutuan may no longer echo with fishing boats or children's laughter. But it speaks in a new language now. A place once lost to time, now reborn in silence and green. A village abandoned, yet more alive than ever. From emerald overgrowth to raw concrete, we arrive at Hashima Island, better known as Gunkanjima, or Battleship Island. Just off the coast of Nagasaki, it rises from the sea like a warship made of steel and stone. But beneath its fortress-like appearance lies a story of ambition, hardship, and haunting silence. Coal was discovered on Hashima in 1810. But it wasn't until the late 1880s, when Mitsubishi took over, that the island transformed. They built massive seawalls to hold back the ocean, stacked housing blocks skyward, and by 1916, constructed Japan's first reinforced concrete high-rise. The island became a floating factory, self-contained and hyper-efficient. By 1959, more than 5,000 people were packed onto less than 1 square kilometer of rock. That made it the most densely populated place on Earth. Narrow corridors connected homes, schools, shops, even a rooftop garden. Every inch was engineered. Every breath counted. But beneath the surface, darker truths lingered. During World War II, Hashima relied on forced labor. Korean and Chinese workers were brought in under brutal conditions. Many never left. Hundreds died in the tunnels and shafts below, lost in silence while coal fueled Japan's wartime engine. When coal demand collapsed in the 1960s, so did the island's future. Mitsubishi shut the mine in 1974. Everyone left. And the sea reclaimed what was once unstoppable. For over 3 decades, Hashima stood untouched, a decaying slab of concrete surrounded by water, isolated and eerily intact. Then came the cameras. Tourism reopened in 2009. In 2015, Hashima was added to UNESCO's World Heritage List. But the recognition sparked controversy. The beauty of its ruins couldn't erase the pain buried in its history. The silence, now broken by footsteps and lenses, still holds echoes of labor, loss, and survival. Today, Hashima stands as both monument and memorial. A warning carved in concrete. A floating relic of ambition, both industrial and human. Abandoned, but never forgotten. If Hashima was industry trapped on concrete, Bodhi was the Wild West trapped in time, frozen in dust and desert wind. In 1859, a prospector named William S. Bodhi struck gold near Mono Lake. He didn't live long enough to see what came next, dying in a snowstorm soon after, but the town that bore his name exploded into legend. By 1879, Bodhi was a full-blown boomtown, home to nearly 7,000 people, over 2,000 buildings, and a reputation that echoed far beyond the mountains. It wasn't just rough. It was infamous. "Goodbye God, we're going to Bodhi," people used to say. Saloons lined every corner. Gunfights were common. Law was a suggestion, and danger came with the territory. For a moment in time, Bodhi was the very heartbeat of frontier chaos, gold, grit, and gunpowder. But boomtowns never last. The gold veins thinned. Miners moved on. The crowds vanished. Fires tore through in 1892 and again in 1932, gutting much of what remained. By the mid-20th century, Bodhi had all but disappeared into the high desert. And yet, it endured. In 1962, California stepped in, declaring Bodhi a state historic park. But they didn't rebuild. They didn't modernize. Instead, they chose to preserve it in a state of arrested decay. No restoration, just protection. As it was, as it stood. Today, visitors walk through a town stopped in time. Look through cracked windows and you'll see beds unmade, schoolbooks on desks, beer bottles still sitting on shelves. It's not a movie set. It's real. It's history, paused. Bodhi isn't just a ghost town. It's a whisper from America's wildest days, echoing through windblown streets where time forgot to move forward. They set out to build a luxury fairy tale. What they ended up with was a kingdom of silence, rows of cold, empty castles. In 2014, a Turkish developer called the Serhat Group launched an ambitious project in Edirne, a sleepy town between Istanbul and Ankara. Their plan? To build over 700 mini-palaces, each one styled after a French chateau. They came with towering turrets, arched windows, and grand stone facades. The price? Anywhere from $370,000 to $530,000 each. Their target market was clear, wealthy buyers from the Middle East. And the vision went beyond just homes. The project promised a luxury lifestyle, thermal spas powered by underground springs that reach 150 degrees Fahrenheit, a shopping mall, even a cinema. These homes were designed to offer private hot spring baths, literal palaces with healing waters. But by 2018, the cracks began to show. Less than half the homes had sold. Then the economy stumbled. Oil prices dropped. Buyers backed out. Suddenly, the money dried up. Serhat owed over $27 million. Bankruptcy followed. What remains today is surreal. Burj Al Babas, once imagined as a fantasy village, is now frozen mid-dream. Hundreds of castle shells sit lifeless, fenced off and crumbling. Locals never liked the project. Many hated the way forests were cleared for it. Environmentalists called it a disaster. Still, the ghost town stands. A lifeless monument to grand ideas, lost fortunes, and promises never fulfilled. A fantasy trapped in stone. If Burj Al Babas was a fairy tale frozen mid-sentence, then Ordos City was a mega dream that ran too far, too fast, and ended up chasing its own shadow. Born from the coal-fueled optimism of the early 2000s, China poured billions into a bold new vision in Inner Mongolia. In the Kangbashi district, planners imagined a glittering metropolis, a sleek, futuristic city built to house over 1 million people across 130 square miles. It had everything: wide boulevards, high-rise towers, Olympic-grade stadiums, massive public squares. But by 2009, all that ambition echoed through empty streets. Photos of deserted towers and silent playgrounds made global headlines. The media dubbed it a ghost city. One infamous report showed journalist Melissa Chan walking through neighborhoods so still, stray dogs outnumbered humans. The silence wasn't just eerie, it was deafening. But not everyone agreed with the ghost label. Some called it premature. "It needs some time," one local said. "But the ghost will be gone." And in a way, they weren't wrong. By 2017, the city had grown to over 150,000 residents. But the people didn't arrive organically. Many were government workers relocated to fill quotas. The city was alive, but only just. The growth came with cracks, literally. Poor construction meant some buildings began falling apart in just a few years. Roads wore down. Infrastructure, meant to impress, began to reveal its flaws. Still, institutions opened: a museum, a library, some schools. Life began to pulse through the skeleton. Today, Kangbashi isn't quite a ghost town. But it isn't what it set out to be either. It's a place that sprinted before it could crawl. A city built on speed, not soul. All shimmer, little substance. A monument to ambition, and the silence that follows when dreams move faster than people. And then, there's Pripyat, a city not abandoned by economics, but erased by catastrophe. In the 1970s, the Soviet Union built Pripyat as a shining example of progress. A model city designed to house the workers of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Nearly 50,000 people lived there, most of them young families. Life was vibrant. The city had schools, hospitals, shops, movie theaters, cafes, and even a brand new amusement park. Its Ferris wheel was scheduled to spin for the first time on May 1, 1986. But that day never came. On April 26, 1986, just 3 kilometers away, Reactor 4 exploded. What followed became the worst nuclear disaster in human history. Radiation spilled into the air, but the sirens didn't follow, not right away. For 36 hours, life in Pripyat continued like nothing had happened. Parents walked their kids to school. People went to work. No one knew the invisible danger that was already seeping into their skin, their lungs, their lives. Then the buses arrived. The evacuation began. Families were told it was temporary. Bring your documents, your essentials. You'll be back in a few days. They never returned. Today, Pripyat stands silent. Empty schoolrooms still have chalk on the boards. Children's toys lie scattered across dusty floors. Trees grow through buildings. Vines crawl through shattered windows. Nature has crept in like a slow tide, reclaiming every forgotten corner. Pripyat isn't just a ghost town, it's a time capsule. A frozen echo of normal life interrupted in an instant. And with the rise of dark tourism and Chernobyl documentaries, it has become something else entirely: a symbol. A haunting reminder of how quickly everything familiar can vanish. Not with a war, or with warning, but with a single, silent breath of radiation. Some places vanish all at once. Others crumble quietly. Krakow, in southern Italy, didn't fall to war or fire. It faded, slowly, painfully, inch by inch. Perched high on a cliff, 400 meters above the valley floor, Krakow was once a noble hill town. Founded before the 11th century, it was crowned with stone palaces and guarded by natural cliffs. In the 1300s, it had its own universities. Its castle once served as a prison. Families passed down homes for generations. But no fortress stands forever. In 1656, a devastating plague swept through, killing hundreds. Then in the 1800s, the crops failed. Farms dried up. Families packed what they could and fled. Over 1,000 residents sailed to America, searching for hope across the ocean. Still, Krakow stood. But the land beneath it was shifting. In 1963, faulty infrastructure led to a landslide. The ground began to give way. The town's football pitch vanished. The retaining wall built to hold the earth collapsed. It was the beginning of the end. Floods followed. Then an earthquake in 1980 sealed Krakow's fate. The remaining residents were evacuated. The town was left to the wind. But Krakow didn't disappear. It transformed. Today, the ruins of Krakow have become legendary. A cinematic ghost town with a backdrop so haunting, filmmakers couldn't resist. The Passion of the Christ, Quantum of Solace, they were filmed here, among broken arches and empty streets. But beyond the camera lenses, the legends linger. They say when looters once tried to steal the relic of St. Vincenzo, a voice whispered through the silence, "Take me home and give me music." Every year since, music fills Krakow in his honor, echoing through ruins where life once thrived. Krakow may be empty, but it still speaks. Through its stones, through its stories, through the silence that remembers. Perched like a forgotten memory on the edge of the Aspromonte Mountains, Rogudi Vecchio is a town carved from stone and silence. Founded around the year 1050, it rose high above the Amendolia River, remote and rugged. Life here was never easy. Narrow paths twisted along steep cliffs, and the terrain itself seemed to resist comfort. The people spoke Greco, an ancient dialect that echoed the voices of early Greek settlers. Even its name, Rogudi, is thought to come from words meaning crevices, or harsh. Fitting for a village that clung to rock and endured for centuries. But nature doesn't negotiate. In 1971, then again in 1973, floods and landslides crashed through the region. The mountain groaned and shifted. It became too dangerous to stay. The government ordered a full evacuation. Families left behind generations of history, and a new settlement, Rogudi Nuovo, was built far away on the coast. The old town was left to the wind. Today, Rogudi Vecchio stands empty. Moss covers the floors. Trees push through walls. Doorways open to nothing but air and time. No shops. No voices. Just the whisper of wind over stone. Nature is now the only resident. And yet, it calls to people. Travelers still climb the winding trails to see it. Not for comfort, but for connection. To walk where Greek once echoed under Italian skies. To feel the soul of a place too stubborn to vanish, even in ruin. Rogudi Vecchio doesn't beg to be remembered. It simply exists, quiet, ancient, and utterly unforgettable. Pyramiden wasn't just cold, it was the Soviet dream carved into Arctic ice. Tucked deep within the Svalbard archipelago and named after a jagged mountain shaped like a pyramid, this remote coal town began as a Swedish outpost in 1910. But in 1927, it changed hands and destinies when the Soviet Union took over. What followed was unlike anything else in the Arctic. The Soviets built a model community in the unlikeliest of places. Greenhouses bloomed under artificial light. A pig farm kept meat on the table. There was a cultural palace, a library, sports halls, and in the heart of it all, towering proudly above the snow, stood the northernmost Lenin statue in the world. By the 1980s, nearly 1,000 people lived here, most of them Ukrainians, working day and night to extract coal from beneath frozen rock. But mining in sub-zero temperatures came at a cost. When the Soviet Union fell, the lifeline that kept Pyramiden running snapped. Money vanished. Equipment rusted. In 1996, Tragedy struck. A plane carrying over 140 workers crashed, devastating the community. Just 2 years later, the town shut down. The last resident left, and the Arctic claimed it in silence. Yet Pyramiden didn't decay. It froze, perfectly preserved. Today, buildings still stand untouched. Desks still hold typewriters. Coffee mugs sit beside pianos that haven't been played in decades. There are beds made, notes scribbled, shelves full of Soviet books, waiting, as if someone might return tomorrow. Every summer, a handful of caretakers come back, guiding curious travelers through snowbound corridors and ice-coated gyms. But for most of the year, the only sound is the wind howling past a ghost town locked in permafrost. Pyramiden remains, quiet, haunting, and strangely proud. A Soviet relic staring across the icy waters, its hammer and sickle still unbroken, still watching. A frozen echo of an empire that tried to plant its flag at the edge of the world.